Hello. This is not the podcast.
No, it's not.
It's not. It's video. And Daphna, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited. People will maybe put our faces to our names now once they see the video. People don't always look the way you expect them to
No.
when you hear them talk.
No. I've been fooled many times
That's
when
right.
you listen to the voice on a podcast and you're like, that's the person?
Who knew?
Mm-hmm. So we're here to introduce people to our latest initiative, the Neonatal Network. And I guess Daphna and I were talking about the fact that it is truly a novel idea, and it won't be natural to think of what the Neonatal Network is or does. And so we thought it would be very helpful to just sit down and shoot the breeze a little bit, talk about like how this came about and, what are the things that are going to be offered on the network.
Yeah, I think we've really loved engaging with people who message us and email us, and but that's such a small part of our kind of neonatal community. And then we have, we get to converse with people on Neo Twitter, which is great. And obviously, we're always trying to get people on Neo Twitter. But we were hoping to find a different kind of space, where we could do something a little bit unique and really start collaborating across groups, across states, across countries. Really, we really wanted to create this kind of sense of community that we feel like we've gotten from the incubator, but so that everybody can get a little piece of it.
And I think the incubator and the Neo Twitter community highlighted to us the fact that this is not a US, Canada place. This is a global community that wants to engage.
For sure.
And the incubator itself, through Journal Club, we've been very fortunate to be able to review many very good articles coming from abroad, like from outside the US. And there's very little international collaboration. Obviously, there is many international multi-center trials published, but it's not the norm.
And I think it's hard to get in, especially if you're just starting out, right? So.
Yeah. And so for all these reasons, we thought, how do we translate a lot of the things that we've learned from our guests, from the podcast, from the community, into an initiative that will actually make a significant difference on the international neonatal stage. And this is where the idea of the Neonatal Network came about. I mean, it didn't just come. I mean, we carved this idea over months and months.
Yeah, it almost came about at the same time we started the podcast. We've just been refining it and trying to decide how we could be most effective.
It took many shapes and forms.
That's right.
And it probably is not. We think it's a terrific idea. We think it's going to be very successful, very popular. The people we've presented the idea to are all very, very excited about it. And it's also an idea that we feel we can really drive home and get done. Because I think when you start thinking in very utopian terms of what needs to happen, sometimes you can fall prey to good ideas, but not really practical ideas. So I'm very happy that this is something we're going to actually be able to get done. So
I also think, I think probably the most important thing is we're excited to see what will happen once it's out there, right? So that's what we want. We don't even know what it'll become or what shape it will take once other people start engaging and making connections. And that's what we hope, that it will take on a kind of life of its own, separate even from what we had envisioned, based on what the community needs.
Yeah. And so there's a few things that we had in mind that we wanted to achieve with the network. Number one, we wanted to find a place where the community could actually engage, and not like social media engage, like meaningful engagement, where we can actually get into the very nitty gritty of things, meaning you want to talk about a research project, you want to actually run a case by colleagues. This is not a platform where we're going to try to replace social media. No, not by any stretch of the imagination. But is there a place out there where you could just log on and chat with colleagues in a safe, secure way so that you could have these kinds of collaborations? And so we looked far and wide for platforms that would have security requirements, HIPAA compliance, all these things. And I think, Daphna, you're the one who found our friends now at therounds.com.
Yeah, it was a lucky coincidence.
Yeah. And so we found this platform called therounds.com that is reserved for providers, meaning if you are not a clinician, if you're not a physician, you can't log in. Like, this is really reserved for people who are going to discuss patient-related information. And that's really, really exciting, because I think that a lot of the discussion on social media right now, whether it is Facebook, whether it is Instagram, Twitter, is being hindered by the fact that we have to always have this handbrake on to make sure we don't disclose too much information, and it always falls short of interesting discussion. So that's the platform that we reached out to them. They helped us set up our community on there. We have tremendous support from the people at the Rounds, and so this is really exciting. But beyond the discussion, right, the big thing was, how do we get people to collaborate? Yeah. And how do we get so we thought, who are the models of collaboration in today's world? And coming from the US, I think to us, the people at the NICHD Neonatal Research Network are being extremely, extremely successful, and they're doing a very good job. So we thought, how could we, I guess not why, but we thought, when we were trainees, like, this is not something you have access to. If you're not working in a center that's part of the Neonatal Research Network, or if you're just a trainee, you may not even get to participate in those kinds of efforts. So how do we create something similar on a global scale where anyone can collaborate on an idea? And so that's where the idea of the Neonatal Network came in. So we're trying to build a community where we will be able to share research ideas, research protocols, and collaborate with each other. And this is really it's not geared towards the people who are part of these big collaboratives who have these big projects. But we thought, Daphna and I, right, when we were fellows, you have a very cool idea. Everybody says, this is a fantastic idea, but hey, you don't have enough patients to study. Or hey,
or we don't do that funding here. Or that's a great idea, but we don't have the resources. Or that's a great idea, but let's do this project first. So,
right.
Trying to find people that are saying, like, yeah, we're ready to take on that project now. Let's do it.
Right. And so, or even when you're young attending and you say, hey, I want to do a project, but it's like, if you're not in an academic center, it's like, you're going to have to do this outside of work hours. And it's very, very difficult. There's a ton of obstacles. And so we thought, there's probably hundreds, if not thousands of people in our position. And we thought, if I had an idea to study babies with severe BPD in my fellowship program, which we were blessed to have many of them, but I guess this comes out terrible. We're not blessed to have many babies with BPD, but we were fortunate that for study purposes, there was enough patients. It's really not. I apologize for that. But let's say you studied something that was quite rare and you could contribute maybe 5 patients, and suddenly you could collaborate with 10 other people who could also help you gather data on 5 patients. Then you suddenly have like 50 patients, and that's a pretty neat research project. It fosters collaboration with other colleagues from around the globe. It fosters this idea of conducting multinational, multi-center types of trials, and that could be really neat.
Yeah, I mean, part of our goal when we started the incubator is really to break down silos a little bit, and really about providing access. And I think neonatologists having access to one another is potentially the most valuable resource that we can provide. So,
yeah. And then I think there's a big stigma in research in general, in medical scientific literature, that if you have an idea, just keep it,
don't share,
hush, don't. And if you can't get the work done by yourself, there's no point in keeping it secret. You might as well just take a megaphone and be like, hey, can somebody help me work on this so that we can actually get it done? Because it's not about the credit of the research or taking the prestige of the publication. It's about like getting the answers to the questions that we've asked. And so we think that for many, having an opportunity to collaborate and to get support will drive this collaborative effort. And so we thought to ourselves as trainees, like whenever we had we always, as a trainee, I felt like I always had to pick like a low-hanging fruit, because I had to pick something where the data was already half collected, where there was not going to need too much grant money, where there was not going to need too much statistical support, because none of that was going to be available to me as a trainee. And that was irritating. And it's not my program's fault. I think this is something I've seen across other training programs. And so we thought, how do we mitigate that? How do we provide people the help that they need? And when we looked back at the big obstacles, right, there were a few of them, right? There were grant support, there were statistics, there was literature, software management, ability to collaborate, like database softwares. And it's just my version of SPSS that I have on my computer is not very legit, to say the least, because that's the only thing I could do when I was a fellow. I didn't have any money. You're so poor. Yeah. And then on top of that, they're like, yeah, sure, apply for this grant that the deadline is in like 6 months and your fellowship ends in 18 months.
That's right.
It's not feasible. So we're doing a few things that are quite exciting, which is that we're going to have cohorts throughout the year where we're going to actually, the Neonatal Network is going to provide grants, and we're going to have different waves of grants. So this year, obviously, because we're starting and it's already May, we're going to have 2 cohorts that are going to receive funding, and we're going to have 2 waves of $10,000. So we're going to be able to grant funds to research projects up to, I guess this year will be 20,000 because we have 2 cohorts of 10,000, and support research efforts from people around the world. And the process in which we're going to do that is quite fun and novel. So you want to tell us a little bit about who gets grant money?
Well, I think that's like one of the things I'm most excited about. And I hope other people will be excited too, is that it's not going to be up to us. It's going to be up to the network. So we will take grant applications. We'll have people submit their full application, but then kind of a brief on what they want to do and how they want to collaborate. And then we'll let the network decide what they think is really important work that needs to be done. That was another thing we felt like that when we were each trying to get projects off of the ground, that maybe nobody thought the work you were doing is important, but then later it turns out to be, or people thought it was important, but the people giving out funding didn't think it was important. So we're going to let the networks, the community decide what they think we should be funding. And our hope is that also people collaborating one another will get kind of higher marks, so that we can really use the collaborative effort to its fullest extent.
Yeah. So basically, we will post the proposals that we've received, and if you upvote a research project, if you comment on the project saying you're willing to participate, we'll look at the projects that are generating the most momentum, and these projects will receive funding, because it's not about who we think has a project deserving of funding. It's about what does the community think is a priority. And I think that that's something that nobody really is looking at, which is that there's some centers in the US who are often having the limitations of middle income countries. And the priorities of those centers in the US are not the priorities of the larger centers. But it doesn't mean that there's not an opportunity for middle income countries and these other centers in the US, in Canada, in the developed world, quote unquote, to collaborate. And that's really, really exciting, because something that may not be important to me in my center may be very important to another person in another center with different set of circumstances. And the idea that people could collaborate with centers in Europe, with centers in Africa, with centers in Asia is so very much exciting. And so, you'll submit you'll submit a proposal, you'll submit a brief, and then we'll let the community decide which one are the top projects, which one are deserving. And the great thing about this whole thing is that we're not a rich enterprise.
No.
We are not making any money off of this of this endeavor as usual.
Right.
But even if a project, for example, does not meet the criterias for funding, and we're like, we've given out the money that we have available for that cohort, and one project gets left out, it doesn't mean that people cannot continue to collaborate, right? I mean, that's the cool part.
Right.
The opportunity to collaborate with others is going to be there, and that's really, really cool. On the note of money and us making money, number one, we're not making money off of this. Number two, it doesn't cost you any money. There's no membership dues. There are no fees to join. There's no application review. If you are a provider and you work in a neonatal ICU, you can join. The logistical aspect of how we pay for our website and all these other softwares, we are, as you guys all know, we're funded by Chiesi through an educational grant. We're very thankful. So they're paying for our cost basically. And we're not, so nothing goes in our pocket, but it's free to you. And that was very important to us too.
Yeah.
That there's really no barriers to conducting research. If you're a provider, you have patients, you want to collaborate, then the sky's the limit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what you said is really important, is it'll give people the opportunity to see what other people are doing and say, hey, maybe I can help you with this, or that's something I'm interested in too, especially for, trainees who are just starting out. What a great way to start working together to really get things done.
Yeah. And this is an opportunity also to, let's say you are in the middle of a project and you have a question, you're not sure, you can talk to people. We're going to have a big community, hopefully, that can actually discuss things with you and provide mentoring, guidance. That's kind of nice to have, to be able to tap into this large community of people who are doing research, who are interested. And the network has a steering committee that we've put together with physicians from around the globe. Right now we have some physicians from Africa, from Canada, from Europe, from the US. We have some medical students as well. We're trying to recruit fellows and residents. And we're hoping to have each region of the world represented on the steering committee. We are trying to gather momentum right now. So we'll see what happens. But our goal is, again, this is not a restricted group. This is going to be a fun community to be a part of.
Yeah. And on that note about who can join the rounds, that's really a specification of the rounds. We're not trying to exclude anybody. In fact, to the contrary, we're hoping that, physicians, trainees who join the rounds have a multidisciplinary team, with them at their place of work, or maybe through the network they can find that if they don't have it. So we're still, totally encouraging multidisciplinary work. It was just the best way for us to find a secure platform for now.
Yeah. So that you could mention details about a patient, even if you don't, not that we're going to disclose patients' names and stuff, but you could go in depth into the course of a patient without fearing that somebody on social media is going to pull this up and be able to identify who you're talking about. We spoke about this with Michael Narvi early on in the incubator episodes, where he said he had written a blog post about a patient that he had recently taken care of, and somebody was able to say, hey, I know who you were referring to. And that was really frightening to him, because even though I didn't put any identifiers, people were still able, because it was public. And so we really wanted this not to be public. But if you're a clinician, you'll get in. So this is kind of cool.
We're running long as usual. So should we tell people what's on deck?
Yeah. So what's on deck right now is that you should start off by registering on the rounds, start posting, start engaging with the community. And we'll have some giveaways, and we'll have some support stuff for the community. So, the first things that are going to be made available to our community are, we're going to have a bunch of licenses for different softwares will be able to provide access to statistical analysis software. So if you know enough stats to run your own stats, but you don't have the money to pay for the software, we'll buy the software for you, and for the different research projects. So that's really, really exciting. If you are like some of the friends that we know, and you print out your papers and you keep them in a box, and it takes you an hour to find the paper you're referring to, and you don't have a library management software, we are buying a ton of licenses that we're going to give away to our community. And these are not cheap. Like they're like a bit over $100.
Yeah, I think that's why it's really hard for people to get it all, right?
Yeah.
To have it.
So we're going to start giving out some of these licenses. If you know the software ReadCube, it's a software where you can actually upload your PDFs. They will actually automatically find the author, the journal, the year, the title. It gives you the chance to like edit the PDF. Like if you have an iPad with a pen, you can actually write on the PDF. You can put your PDF in different categories. And then when you write a manuscript on Word, like you can actually use that to reference. And let's say you've referenced your papers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now you introduce another paper, but now the order is messed up. It will automatically adjust it. So for the people who are going to work with us, this is like an essential tool. If you've used Mendeley in the past, this is exactly the same. Mendeley actually has gone, I don't know, they've stopped. Like I don't know exactly what happened. It was a great software, but recently they were no longer supporting any new versions and no customer support. So we didn't go with Mendeley, even though I used to love Mendeley, but I've moved myself to ReadCube and I have to pay for these licenses. So it is not expensive. We're happy that we're going to make this available to our audience. So this week, log in on the rounds, and by the end of the week, we'll award 5 licenses
at least
for the next 12 months. And so that's going to be our first giveaway. And through the network, we'll give you access, like we said, to statistical software. We're working on getting people statisticians consultation as well. So that's going to be another one that hopefully will help support their research projects. And also RedCap. So we have our own RedCap so that people can actually use the cloud-based software that many people are using to conduct research to actually collect their data and be able to use that so that they don't need to either have an Excel license or have any other software. And as usual, if you have an idea, if you think we could do something better, let us know. I mean, we're really doing this as we go. It's new for us. It's new for everybody. But we're very excited.
Yeah, I mean, most of the things that we've come up with, we've run by, or it's come from the community already. So, I mean, that's what we want to create, is a place where everybody feels like, they have a voice in what we're doing, what the community is putting out. And so we can help more babies, I guess.
It usually starts off with a text that says, what if?
What if? How about?
And for the people who are going to ask about access to journals and papers, we are actively working on it.
We're working on it.
We're actively working on it, but we don't have enough to share yet. So we'll work on that. All right. Daphna and I are going to be available on the rounds. Post, message us, and when are we do we know, Daphna, when our first round of grants is going to come out?
I think we decided it was August, the beginning of August.
So for all the trainees that are going to start in July, this is a very easy way to get a grant very soon after starting fellowship. You will be able to submit. We're going to make the grant submission form available probably next month. And you'll be able to submit, I think, until the end of July. And then we'll have a month of fun where we're just going to start looking at projects.
Yeah. We're super excited. We're super excited. Right. That's all we had to say. We hope you guys are excited too. I think things will really start moving when we get those grant applications that we will all get to look at. So, okay.
Take care, Daphna.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody.